Hello everyone, welcome back to The Green Man, and today I'm going to be reviewing perhaps the biggest metal release of this weekend, perhaps of the year, and that is Gojira's Fortitude, released yesterday on Roadrunner Records. It's 11 tracks and is about 50 minutes in length. And this follows on from Magma, and in a way it feels a bit of a continuation from that album. You can hear a lot of sort of similar styles that Gojira explored more of in that album being carried forward onto Fortitude. And I think that you also still get on offer a lot of the old Gojira sound as well. So it's a bit of a kind of an amalgamation of new and old Gojira within this album for me. It doesn't entirely leave behind their earlier 2000s albums, the really huge groundbreaking albums like from Master Sirius and The Way of All Flesh, and also obviously L'Enfant Sauvage. It sort of still carries on with some of those some elements of those albums. I think they're not entirely left behind here. So if you are worried that this is just purely just accessible Gojira, it's they're turning a bit too popular or a bit too commercial, there's still the old Gojira there in this album. I definitely think that. I don't think that this is in any way one of those albums that people will say, oh, it's a sellout or anything like that. Not at all. And I kind of like this album actually as well. I think it's a good Gojira entry into their discography. It may not necessarily, for me, having such high expectations for this band, being as big a fan as I am of Gojira's, always wanting to be, surprised by Gojira with every song I listen to. They set the bar so high with their previous albums that you sort of come to an album like this with really high expectations. I have to remember that if I was listening to this album, perhaps not knowing Gojira, I would still rate it. I would probably rate it really quite well, and so that's what I'm going to do here. One or two slight issues with this album perhaps, which is, for me, the sound didn't sound quite as thick or as full. So something with the sound engineering here, which I'm not sure works as well for me as it has done on previous albums. I don't know what it is, but there's something a little thin in the sound. It doesn't feel as full as even Magma or preceding albums. There's something that's not quite right with the sound with me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe the volume's not high enough or something. It doesn't feel like there is something complete with the sound of this album. One or two tracks as well. I mean, this is probably my taste as much as anything else, but wasn't so keen on the chant personally, although I think the message of that song is very powerful. Not really my kind of track. Not really one for crowd chants or those kind of choruses personally, but still not a bad song, and very powerful message that comes with it. Also, I think one of the singles, Another World, wasn't so much for me, but pretty much all of the other tracks have something on offer, and there's that bite of Gojira. There's the twists and turns that you want from a band like Gojira still here. I can name a few tracks which I thoroughly enjoyed, which I thought offered those kinds of Gojira ideas, interesting twists and turns within their tracks. There are a few which I really enjoyed. Newfound, a really good use of the whammy effect. I think it's the whammy effect anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like a whammy effect going on here with the guitars in Newfound, and in a couple of other places I think in the album as well. Hold On was a really good track. Sphinx, another strong point. Perhaps interestingly, maybe my favourite track on the album wasn't the typical kind of aggressive Gojira song so much. I really liked this track towards the end called The Trails. Really brooding, moody track, but I liked the cleans on this. It's sort of, a bit kind of like, I think, a track that they used in Magma, which was more sort of low key and understated and subtle. And perhaps even on L'Enfant Sauvage as well. I think there are one or two of these kind of tracks which aren't big sort of aggressive heavy chord Gojira tracks, but they have something about them that's really atmospheric, really kind of moody, and they deliver those kind of tracks just as well quite often. And I think that the Trails for me is actually a highlight of this album, and stands well amongst the other tracks that are the slightly more kind of full-on pulsating Gojira tracks. So what would I give this album? What score would I give the latest from Gojira? At the moment, I would give it an initial score of about 7.5 out of 10. I'm not quite in the frame of mind to give it a really top score yet, like an 8 or a 9. It may grow on me a bit, but I feel like this is sort of along the lines of Magma, with one or two interesting things added in. But for me, it's along those kind of Magma lines again with this album, which for me is not a bad thing. I enjoyed Magma, really enjoyed it actually. I think my slight issue with this album, as I say, is there's something with the sound that doesn't feel quite complete with this, with some of the tracks in this album. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe that's just me being fussy, but it's just my view. But anyway, yeah, good album though, really good album from Gojira. I will be listening to it more times this year, I'm sure, and perhaps it will indeed grow on me even more as I listen to it more in the year. So thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to watch some more of my album reviews or other content from this channel, and I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.